Ever stop to think about the hidden stuff, the things you don't see that actually make our modern world work?
Right, like the actual manufacturing process is what happens behind the scenes.
Exactly. Behind the clean room walls in these really specialized factories. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain a bit on one part of that wet processing equipment.
hmm And we're doing this specifically looking at one company, Amerimaid Technology. We've got some source material just about them.
Yeah, we have this info outlining, what a Maramade does, the equipment they build, who uses it, why it matters.
All those details.
So, our mission for this deep dive is basically to unpack all of that. Just using the info we have to understand this really vital but kind of niche area of manufacturing.
It's sort of like exploring the engine room,
Yeah.
right? The hidden tech that powers so much else.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's get into it.
So first off, this term, wet processing equipment. What are we actually talking about here? Sources list a few related things.
Right. I saw wet etch, wet station, wet bench, fume hood, and then the main term, wet processing equipment.
Yeah. And fundamentally, these are all systems for handling chemicals and liquids during manufacturing, very precisely.
Handling liquids. Okay, so what does that involve? Like, what's the core process?
Well, based on these descriptions, it's about using controlled chemical baths, rinses, maybe special drying steps, things you need for cleaning components, or etching tiny patterns onto them, or maybe coating them.
Ah, okay.
And it's complex stuff. You're often dealing with pretty sensitive materials, sometimes hazardous chemicals too. So everything has to be super controlled. Even tiny changes can mess up the final product.
Gotcha. So it's applying liquid chemistry, but like really carefully during production. Okay. Now, Amerimaid specifically, their vision, according to the source,
Yeah, they stated pretty clearly to be your wet processing equipment manufacturer of choice.
choice. Okay.
And they seem to frame themselves as more than just, selling you a machine. They talk about having qualified engineers ready to help design solutions.
Right, assisting customers from the beginning all the way through.
Exactly. Like they want to be a partner to help figure out these tricky chemical processing challenges.
Okay, makes sense. So, what are the actual tools? What equipment do they build to handle these chemicals so precisely? The source lists their main products.
So the core stuff includes fully automated wet processing stations,
Okay, fully automated.
semi-automated ones, and manual wet processing stations too.
Hmm.
Plus things like bulk chemical delivery systems and fume hood systems.
That range is interesting. Automated, semi, manual. It suggests they work with companies at different scales, maybe, or for different steps in a process.
Yeah, seems likely.
Hmm.
Different levels of automation for different needs or budgets, probably.
And they also mention surplus equipment.
They do, yeah. And they even give some specific examples of surplus items.
Hmm.
Gives you a feel for it.
Like what?
Let's see. A 4-foot seat. Yeah. Also a standalone dryer, a smaller 2-foot manual wet station, and even a big one, a 16-foot fully automated stainless steel solvent tool.
Wow, 16 feet. Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting for me. Who actually needs this kind of super precise chemical handling gear? The list of markets Amerimaid serves is, well, it's broad.
It really is. It covers a lot of high-tech ground. You've got semiconductor manufacturing,
Okay, that makes sense. Tiny circuits, purity is key.
definitely. Then MEMS, those microelectromechanical systems, life science, biotech.
Life science, biotech, thinking sterility, specific surface treatments, maybe?
Exactly. Also aerospace, renewable energy, medical devices.
Medical devices, yeah, another one where cleanliness and material properties are critical.
In defense aerospace is listed again, maybe emphasizing that sector.
That's quite a list. I mean, just think about the range there for a second. You go from making chips at the nanometer scale
Where chemical purity is everything.
to medical devices needing perfect sterility or aerospace parts needing rigorous cleaning. Even renewable energy, solar cells, batteries, that stuff often involves chemical steps, right?
Absolutely. It
What?
really shows how fundamental this kind of wet processing capability is.
Yeah.
It's like the bedrock for making all these advanced products in so many different fields.
Yeah, you might not see the wet bench itself, but you see the results. It's in your phone, medical implants, maybe even the solar panels on a roof.
It underpins their ability to actually produce that stuff.
So to serve industries like that, you'd expect them to have some serious experience. The source says Amerimaid started back in 1992.
Yeah, that's over 30 years in this specific game.
Yeah.
And they mention having thousands of their systems out there working reliably.
Which suggests, durability and that they know what they're doing.
Right. And the source gives some specific numbers around their experience, too.
What were those again?
It says 150 plus years of experience. which sounds like the collective team experience, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. The combined knowledge.
And also 150 plus manufactured systems, which probably points to the number of like custom or major systems they've built.
Okay. So those figures, straight from the source, they kind of back up that idea of having a really qualified engineering team. Deep knowledge of the design, the features, how to build them, even down to the racks that hold the products.
Mm-hmm. That history and engineering depth seem to be a big part of their pitch.
So beyond the experience, why else might a company choose Amerimead? What benefits do they highlight in the source material?
They list a few key things: being client-oriented, independent, competent, results-driven, problem-solving, and experienced.
Okay, those sound, well, they sound particularly relevant for these kinds of high-stakes industries we were just talking about.
Definitely. Things like being client-oriented and problem-solving, that seems vital when you're basically designing custom chemical setups for really specific, tricky processes.
Yeah, you need that partnership approach.
Yeah,
And independent, what might that mean? Maybe more flexibility than some giant conglomerate.
could be. Maybe easier to work with on custom stuff. It all seems to tie back to their main goal, which the source mentions is offering superior products and service.
Right. It's not just here's your machine, it's
Yeah.
here's a solution that actually solves your specific complex chemical process need.
Exactly.
Okay. So if we pull this all together, what we're seeing from this deep dive, just based on the source info, is that Amerimade technology is really focused. They're specialists in this essential but maybe often overlooked area of wet processing equipment.
Hmm. And they play this critical role, enabling all sorts of high-tech manufacturing, chips, medical stuff, aerospace.
A huge range, and they seem to emphasize custom solutions built on that deep engineering experience over 30 years of it and really working with the customer on these precise, tricky chemical steps.
Yeah, this deep dive really highlights how foundational this kind of behind-the-scenes tech is. Like you said, underpinning advances everywhere from medicine to green energy.
It really does. It shines a light on this critical industrial infrastructure that, honestly, most people probably never think twice about.
Not at all.
So here's a final thought for you, something to chew on. We've seen how all these seemingly different fields, making microscopic circuits, prepping materials for satellites, ensuring medical implants are pure, they all lean heavily on these super specialized, precise chemical processes like wet processing.
Yeah, that connection is striking.
So what does that intense interconnectedness, that reliance on this hidden infrastructure, really tell us about modern technology itself and about the importance of these specialized supply chains that just hum along in the background, making it all possible?